Hi guys, I'm back. And it is evening in Fort Wayne, Indiana. 7 p.m. Well, happy news. I got these two shots done today, in which he's like, I mean, why would you? You're a girl. And he offends Tianara. Excuse me? Okay, so the good news is that this... Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have the preview turned on. Oh my goodness gracious. There we go. Sorry. So sue me, people. Okay. She says, excuse me? And he's like, you know, I'm just saying. Okay. So the good news is that this shot is actually just this shot cropped a little, the ends of it cropped a bit and run in reverse. And that actually happens with dialogue scenes surprisingly often. There's only one thing about it that I really kind of have a problem with. Okay, right there. Da-da. I think right about there we need to clip it and shorten it up a little bit. So there. Okay. It is obviously the evening, and so we will see how far I get. But the plan is to rock and roll on this shot of Mel. We do have the background for that shot already done, which is kind of good. Somewhere in here. Somewhere in here. I'll find... Well, okay, I guess we had that shot. Actually, we could probably take this shot and probably, frankly, if we flipped that horizontally, and obviously we wouldn't have the tent popping around, but honestly, if we flipped that horizontally, that would probably work for this shot. Let me look back here and see. You know, we're not trying to be, we're not trying to be like super lazy here, but why redo another background painting when you've already got one? It's, I argue that generally it's better to go ahead and reuse stuff if you can, because it lends a sense of consistency. You know, I'm not such a great artist that I'm going to paint it exactly the same way every time and blah, 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 blah. So, so let me look at something here. I'm going to do a quick check on my YouTube channel to make sure this live stream is in fact live. It looks like it is. Looks like everything's working. So, okay. So I don't know who's going to show up tonight. As I said, it's 7 p.m. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, though. I tell you what I'm going to do. I was thinking I was going to have to make some edits on this shot, but since running it in reverse with a couple edits did the trick, I don't think I really need to go any further with this. Now, we will be coming back to it, because actually this bit of there's a wide shot which we're going to have to get in there, but here we see the same angle again. That's probably the tight version of the same thing. And then he goes wide, so it'll be fun to do this stuff. Tight close-up on Tianara, back to a wide shot. There you go, you got another close shot. So there's, you know, there's a smattering of different shots. There's definitely some drawing to be done. But in this situation, just so you know, the prince and Tianara wind up kind of irritated with each other, and the prince stomps back out of the tent. To which Mel says, ouch. That's when she grabs her veil, rips it off, and actually escapes. And on it goes. So then we'll get to it, folks. Well, the good news is, there's some good news tonight and there's some bad news. The good news is, it looks to me like there is, I'm looking right down here, and it looks like we've got 6 minutes and 51 seconds that's not animated. So at this point, episode 2 has 9 minutes done here, and 7.5 minutes done there. So we're really making good progress, honestly. We're not that far away from having 2 episodes complete. And of course, there will be a certain amount of going back and saying, hey, let's take some of the stuff that was done earlier and see if we can make it a little bit better out of this. What do we got going here? I'm hitting Alt up arrow. Oh, I'm hitting the wrong hotkey. Sorry guys, I'm just gonna reload this shot. Oh, I see what I did. Okay, so this is 524. I actually already saved it as number 524, which I really didn't need to do. But so anyway, this is just a duplicate of 522. Anyway, when I render it, you can see that there's this nice kind of a glow effect going on. Okay, so there was some discussion about the new bloom effect in Tahoma, and I wanted to I got an unlisted video, basically a private video more or less, from Darren T, where he was showing me a couple things that make the bloom effect a little easier to control. So again, there's good news and bad news. What I did on this shot was I rolled my own bloom effect. I actually used a curve tool, which I changed to a level adjustment. So that's this. So just to kind of show you what it does, if we cramp up this, or crimp this contrast, you might say, and expand this range, you get a pretty good kind of a glow effect, right? And then, believe it or not, by just making, because the blur, it's a 180 pixel blur. Now you could change the size of the blur so it's not as spread out. You get less bloom. And then it's just added in over top. So you're taking the shot and just adding it over itself, a blurred version in additive mode. So that's a cool thing, because by simply adjusting the RGB input, which is going to punch up the contrast of the overlay, the reason you do that is because the areas that are dark, you don't want them to be blurred and affect the look of the shot at all. You're just trying to take the areas that are bright and blur them, and then that's what you lay over top of it, and that's what makes it look like a glow, or it looks like a bloom, because the glow bleeds over the characters and kind of creates this glow around them without necessarily making the interior part of the character out of focus, because obviously you could blur everything, and that's generally not what you're trying to do. If you did blur everything, here's what would happen. Okay, so there's the effect with no dialing in the contrast. So you can actually turn down the output of the overlay. So now, boom, you don't see it at all. And so you could do that. You could just kind of punch it in like that. So now you get, it looks more like a glow than a bloom though. If you want a bloom, you gotta limit the range of brightness that's being blurred and overlaid. So again, as an example, this is going to be a pretty high contrast version. I can show you what that looks like. Let me put this up here. So if we were to run the output from the level adjustment straight to the output, let's see here, scene, output. Let me go ahead and, okay. So what I'm saying is, this is my picture without any effect. And what I want to do is I want to lay over top of it in additive mode so it brightens up, a blurring effect, but I don't want to blur and add over everything, just the brightest stuff. So what you would do is you're going to punch up the contrast in the overlay so that the only thing that you're really, everything else is going to make no change to the underlying drawing at all, for the simple reason that when you add 0, which the level of black is 0, when you add 0 to a number, you get the same number. So therefore, there's no change that takes place. Okay, so I hope this makes sense. So now we can even punch up the contrast even more, and as much as possible try to exclude his face. But as you can see, you still get this redness. It may be possible though. Yep. It's really a fine adjustment. I'm just going to see if I can do it. There we go. Now that should give us actually the perfect bloom that we're talking about. I'm going to leave the RGB output. So what the RGB input lets us pump up the contrast by taking all of the values and crunching them into a smaller space. Effectively, that's increasing contrast. On the other hand, when you adjust the RGB output, you're just basically turning it down, like that. So that's going to let us dial down how strong the effect is. So the RGB input lets us affect where it affects our image, which, as I said, is only going to be on the brightest parts of it. And then the RGB output affects how strong that effect will be. Okay? Pretty useful. Now, what we wanted to do then is we're taking this and we're simply laying it over top of itself, like this. So if we turned the blur off, see what would happen? If we turn the blur off, we just get this, and we don't want additive mode, by the way. Then we just get the brightening. So the blur is what actually gives us the bloom. Okay, so now we say, now how do we dial it in? I'm actually liking this better than what I had before because I was able to really clamp it just to this area and get his flesh tone out of it. So now what we're going to do is just turn it down and then dial it in until it feels about right. I'm definitely liking that. That's feeling pretty good. Okay. So now I'm going to stop right there. And I think I'm going to go ahead and save this as my preset. So the other thing that, okay, couple things. Number one, if you look really, really closely, you will notice banding. You see this on his flesh tone? You see how there's discrete bands of color? I don't know if there's anything we can do about that at this point in OpenToonz or Tahoma. It's an issue that I noticed a long time ago and pretty much had forgotten about it because I hadn't really bumped into it recently. But if you pay close attention, thing is, you know, in the let us just say that in the professional setting where we're trying to create, you know, a TV show, we pretty much don't want banding in our art. Now, can you get away with it from time to time? And it's like it's going to blow by so fast on the screen that no one's going to notice? Probably. Okay, so it is not the end of the world, but it is an issue. Normally, I mean, I shouldn't say normally, I should say traditionally, the reason you get banding is because you have a gradient that's a continuum of color. And if you were using the mathematics in the programming that you're using, if the size of the numbers that you're using to describe the gradient are, if it was too small a bit depth, in other words, too small a number, it can't accommodate enough different gradations of color. I don't think that's what's going on here, though. I think it's actually, it's probably more complicated than that. And, you know, there is the possibility, it's a way outside possibility, but I guess it's possible that it could have something to do with my system, my monitor, whatever, but I'm pretty sure it's not, because when I look at the render here on the show, if I look really closely, I can see that the banding is taking place. So what are you going to do? Right now what I'm doing is I'm looking at the other screen. I'm looking really closely at this preview, and indeed I can see the banding there. So it's definitely, hey, Dead Pianist. So it's definitely baked into the render. So anyway, having said that, I just wanted to call your attention to it, because if banding is a deal breaker for you, let's face it, it doesn't come up very often. But here's the thing. At least for creating something that's kind of in an anime type of genre, frankly, gradients and glows are kind of a thing. I mean, you know, they're kind of a common thing that we're using a lot. So for that reason, it would probably be better if the banding wasn't there, but that's something that the developers would have to take a look at. So you can, if you wanted to grok it out, what you do is you'd start you'd start taking these effects one by one and piping them straight to the output and try to figure out where the banding is introduced. I actually think what's happening is it's when the blurred effect is being composited over top of the drawing without the effect, and when it's composited together, I think that's when we're getting the banding going on. So enough about the banding. Okay, so Darren T also pointed out to me how to make a macro useful. So what am I talking about? Well, to complete this discussion, if you want to add a bloom effect to your scene in Tahoma or OpenToonz, and so you go to light, and then here you've got this bloom effect, which is a new effect. Okay, this is what my experience with it has been. Okay, so Darren showed me this. These defaults are pretty much worthless. If your levels have to be really, really low, like this, for it to be controllable and useful at all. I'm not even going to show it because bad news on the bloom effect is that I consistently, once I got it dialed in where it kind of looked like what I have here with my own, kind of homemade bloom effect. The problem is that I would look at the imagery with the effect applied, and it would look good, and then I would go forward a couple frames, and the effect would be gone. It would just look completely white. And every scenario I tried to render it, it came out white. So there's something buggy in the new bloom effect. Don't know if it's because of where it was in the pipeline. In other words, what I seem to have found was that if it didn't do any good to just have it affect the whole scene. Because for a bloom effect, normally, let me just go ahead and adjust this so we can kind of get this under control. Let me see what we want to do here. Probably a little bit of gain. Little bit of size. Okay, yeah. I mean, it blows out really fast. I mean, the values have to be super low, so it really should be looked at and retooled a bit. But okay, so now I'm getting close. Okay, so I'm gonna turn this down and see if I can. It's so touchy. There you go. This is what you're looking for. Okay. The problem that I had was when I rendered it, like right there, the effect's gone. Now there's no reason why the effect should have looked fine on this frame, and 3 frames earlier it was gone, and now it's gone. And so you like turn it off and back on, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And every time I rendered, I wound up with this, a white screen. So it's like there's just not too many scenarios where an effect that really is only able to be dialed in within about 4% of its actual range, plus it doesn't actually work when you render. Not a lot of scenarios where that's actually all that useful. So for me, the bloom effect is pretty much off my list. So I came up with my own. And as I said, this is actually working incredibly well. This is a gorgeous bloom effect. And because I did get the contrast dialed in, this looks pretty much better than any version of the bloom effect I've come up with so far. Pretty happy with that. So, what do we do with that? Well, here's what we do. We take we draw a lasso around these 3 effects, and we say, make it a macro effect. Okay, so now it puts it in a box. Okay, and the macro effect, you can then save as a preset, which is going to be called Dave's Bloom. And I save that, and that already exists, but I do want to overwrite it because I got the settings dialed in better now. Okay, so now before we do the plain old shot, so now I'm going to take this, insert effects, and look, macro has now appeared on my pop-up, and I'm going to insert Dave's Bloom, and then to use it, all I have to do is just plug the scene into both inputs. So it's essentially comping the effect over itself. And there you go. Now I can render that out, and that's feeling pretty good. Let me see. And I can always adjust it, if I want to kind of dial it up a little more gently. You can see the banding like crazy there if you look really close. Look at that, various shades of gray. So it is what it is. There are probably worse things, but hey, Pen. So that's that. So now we know how to create a macro out of any number of plugins and save it as a preset. So yeah, again, you can see that banding. Again, you know, it's not a deal buster, but it's definitely not desirable. So that's the shot I did earlier today. And he's like, well, you know, I'm just saying. I love that. I'm just saying. Okay, guys, here's what I'm going to do. You guys chat among yourselves for like 2 minutes. I'm going to go grab my evening tasty beverage, and then we're going to start a new shot. To get that new shot started, though, what we're going to do is we're going to come back to this shot of Mel. So let me see if I can find the one that I thought was looking interesting. I think it was this one. So we'll load up 501 and go from there. So file, I guess we should probably save all on this shot, and then I'm going to load up shot 501. We're gonna horizontally flip the background and then completely start all over as far as the animation stuff goes. So yeah, it looks like I'm gonna have to browse to. All right, so Control 0. Whoops. Okay, there we go. All right, and before I go too much further, I do want to check one more thing, just to make sure I'm not missing something insofar as it just seems to me. Okay, there it is. There it is. Okay, so we actually, my bad, we actually have this background from another scene that we could use. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of compare this to this one flipped, and then we'll just decide which we want to use. So I'll be back in 2 minutes with my tasty beverage, and we'll get rocking on this new shot. I am back, and I'm not gonna lie, I took a potty break too. So what I have is a extra dirty martini. No vermouth, only gin, with a double shot of olive juice and no ice. Very strange. Not too many people drink their martinis this way. Just exactly what the doctor ordered tonight. Okay, so with that, I shall grab my stylus, and I need to make a decision. Are we going to use this, or are we going to use this? The reality is we probably should use this, and the reason is because just a short time ago, this flows right into this stuff. So we were on this shot just a short time ago, and the reality is that it would be more consistent if we use it. Now, what I do want to do is redraw Mel, though. I kind of feel like probably I could do a little better job on the guy. So with that, we will do this, and let's pull up shot number 515. Okay, file, load scene, 515. I can't even believe how I'm like, I haven't even touched Krita this week. It's like I'm doing everything in Tahoma and just getting stuff done, I guess. So, okay, from the standpoint of compositing, this shot looks like quite the mess, doesn't it? Well, it's because we got a lot of shadow layers and stuff like that. So, we're not going to use our glow effect on this scene. I wonder what this... Oh, okay. So this is a gradient that was composited over the entire shot. This is the cast shadow, I believe. Nope, this is the head shadow. Okay. So I'm going to turn that off and call it head SHD. Head. This would just be SHD. It's my typical abbreviation for a shadow. This is bod. And this is the cast shadow. Cast shadow. Okay, I'll turn this back on, and before we get any further, I'm just going to save this because all that labeling and naming really should have been done a long time ago when I first created the scene. So, okay. So I'm feeling pretty enthused here, folks, because I've gotten... What have I actually done today? Yeah, 19 seconds. Dang, that's pretty good. Hey, Maria. Expecting my theater budget meeting at about 8 p.m., but hanging out while I can. Okay, cool. Groovy, baby. Okay, so what's on the agenda here vis-a-vis the storyboard is this shot of Mel. So in this shot of Mel, which I'm just going to go ahead and cut to the clipboard right now while I'm thinking about it, it is a tighter shot than what we have here. So I think what I'd like to do is I'm going to save this as 525, and then I'm going to just delete a bunch of stuff, and we're just going to start over. The only thing I need to keep is probably this level, just so I can copy the palette to the new shot. So we will have the cast shadow in there. I guess I could leave the cast shadow in there. Everything else, yeah, that's the old storyboard imagery. This we'll keep for its palette. We don't need the shadows. Frankly, I don't think we need his head. This gradient we'll probably keep. So file, we're going to save this as 525. Is that right? Yeah. Oops. Let's just 525. Okay, and then immediately, before any of the bad gremlins come and convince us otherwise, immediately change our output settings so that we're rendering also to 525. I just put in 252. That's amazing. 525. I don't know if that was a dyslexia moment or something else. Save all. Okay, very good. Now, what we're going to do is, we know we're going to have an ink and paint layer, so I'm going to hit the B key and just create that, just so that I can go like this, grab this palette, paste it over here. Can I delete that color? No, you can't delete that color. So this color actually needs to be this color. So I'm going to grab that, Control C, grab this. So what I'm doing is I'm changing the actual hex value of the color. Paste that in there. And then this palette entry can be deleted. And then this entire level can be deleted. Right? Makes sense, huh? And now I'm going to turn the background opacity way the heck down. I'm going to turn the cast shadow off. I don't need to be looking at it. I'm going to turn the gradient off. Now we're relatively undistracted. So the next step is to paste in the storyboard image, which doesn't appear on to be on the storyboard anymore. Okay, that's all right. We'll just let's go best full, copy that to the clipboard, and then come back to Tahoma, and hopefully it'll, doggone it, work this time. And it looks like it's going to. Come on, come on, come on. Okay, so this is the, he's kind of going, right? So there's definitely a bit of acting here to do. So this should be fun. What I'm going to do, I think, is tighten up this drawing directly, and then let's go ahead and block this in as a pencil test. I think for our purposes, what I could do also is if I grab my eraser, I think what I could do is just kind of turn this into, so it kind of looks like an animatic. Basically, I'm gonna just chop him out of his background. Okay, and that just allows me to see the background through it. That's the only reason I did that. And that way, in this pencil test, I don't have to concern myself with, you know, drawing the background over and over or whatever. So, okay, so with that, I hit the B key, and I'm going to go ahead and just start going in here and tightening up what I need to tighten up so that I can be sure when I go to do ink and paint that I actually have a plan. And besides, it's fun to draw, right? We all love to draw. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just delete that. Hit the B key. Those should really cut pretty straight across. We shouldn't really be seeing that. You know, it's like it doesn't actually make sense to draw it like that. Because from the angle we're seeing it, we're almost straight profile on the old wrist wraps. So. Okay, so let's zoom in, see what we have here. This was a discussion, I think, last week, talking about hands. Let's just go ahead and delete all those fingers. So, as John Buscema used to say, draw through your character. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the basic volume that his fingers occupy. Okay, they're a little big. Okay, actually they're a lot big. I'm going to hit Control, just shrink those down. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, so now we can zip back in here. Let's just subdivide these kind of logically into 4 fingers, and then we can at least have a roadmap for what's going to be inked, right? Cool. Maybe a little hint of his thumb there. Ta-da! Now an alternative would be, I'm going to hit the S key, go Control C, Control V. I'm going to drag this over here just to play around with something. Okay, so now I'm going to erase that part and say, well, what if his hand was all splayed out like that? What if we did that? Wouldn't that work? Well, yeah, I think it would. But would it look better? That's the question. And the answer is maybe. So, is there anything else going on out there? Nobody's really tuning in tonight. It's probably a little late for Darren in England. I think it's about 1 or 2 in the morning. Can't remember. I should remember this because he just said it the other day. But okay, and I'm actually going to do even a third version. This is why sometimes I like to just slow the heck down and really just do some drawing. Because why would they, I mean, his fingers kind of look like it's really weird. They need to be splayed out, but they shouldn't be so straightened, bent over and straightened out, right? So let's just figure it out. I'm making the fingertips a little bit larger because they're kind of mushing out in perspective, and this one's foreshortened kind of in a big way. Okay. Hit the N key, And I think there's no contest, people. That's gone. That's gone. Whoops. This one is selected. Yeah, that's better. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll just make an adjustment to the wristband things. We'll just erase them and redraw. So, nothing more fun than drawing. Right? Not too much on your end, huh? All business today. Had some time for idle sketching, experimenting with figures and proportions to see what happens. Very good. Always fun to be able to do something creative. I do actually consider myself quite lucky in that regard to be able to make my living and do something that's generally pretty creatively interesting, challenging. Excuse me. The reason I started doing animation was because I thought, I've made a bunch of movies. I've got commercial media clients. I've done voiceovers. I do voiceovers every month for different things. But I just thought, being the type of filmmaker I was, where I'm kind of from that Robert Rodriguez school, kind of, it's all about the creativity and just kind of do it yourself, and it doesn't have to be expensive, and it's more about your creativity and ingenuity than it is about how much money you spend, right? And of course, you're talking about an industry that's been totally democratized in the last 20 years. Anybody can get into it. So the bad news is there's a lot more bad content. But the good news is there's a lot more content. So there's a lot more good too. There's never been a better time to be a media designer, media creator. It is maybe harder in many circles to actually make a living at it, I guess. I suppose. I'll be honest with you, friends. I don't make a living from the filmmaking stuff. I do make money from it. I get royalties, and they're probably, for a lot of people, it'd be a meaningful amount of money, let's say. But I don't think I could live on just those royalties. Most artists will tell you that. Most musical artists that you've heard of that are on the radio or whatever, that especially legacy artists from, say, the 80s or whatever, they really don't make that much money on royalties. In fact, hey Soda Pop. In fact, actually, the problem with royalties is that, especially in the music's world, but it's the same with film to a degree. There's a real trust relationship between you and your distributor or your performing rights organization, whether it's ASCAP or BMI or whoever it is, because you really are depending on them to accurately report where your music or where your media was actually being used, because it'd be really hard to police that, So unfortunately, the stories are legion of musical artists who, found out that they were due some royalties that were not forthcoming, and then they had to sort of chase it down. Actually, the funny thing about that is I actually have a fairly interesting story about that very thing that I could tell right now that just came up. Because I actually got a check in the mail today, literally today, that kind of relates very directly to what I'm talking about. So I'll leave it to you guys. I haven't been, Soda Pop, I haven't been on Discord in quite a while. I kind of lurked there for a bit, and that was where I kind of got acquainted with Tom doing art. Hence the discussion a couple days ago about the whole programming thing. But so I'll leave it to you guys if you want me to tell this story about collecting royalties. I found the story kind of funny, so I'm happy to tell it if you're interested. Anyway, okay, so he's going to have... I'll tell you what, I am going to... You know, the bad news here is I'm going to have to... do these drawings in the wrong order, but the world will keep turning. So I'm going to add another drawing, and I'm just, since we're doing a pencil test, I'm going to just keep erasing and drawing, really trying to make this fun. I wanna really go anime here a little bit and put in at least one frame of a fairly comical reaction. And so again, I'm kind of having to work in reverse here. So you would get, man, you'd probably have like 2 frames of that. And then you're going to have maybe at most 1 second, I would say, of this. So we'll just kind of get a beat on how that flows. And I think for the scene I'm working on, I'm just going to set the stop marker myself manually so that I can preview a limited range. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay. Why is that interesting, you say? Well, because actually I'm thinking this should be like... Ah, shoot, I didn't mean to do that. Gotta grab it again. Okay, I'm gonna pull out here. And I would say, for my purposes, I think I'm gonna go ahead and, I know this looks stupid, but I'm gonna just stretch this out just so I can, just to block in a concept. I'll redraw it, but just to kind of get a concept, I think I can. Could probably do it this way. So I'm putting the pivot point where his elbow would be. Okay, let's just pop. You actually like that. That's definitely the idea. And again, this is really stupid because I'm having to totally work in reverse. I wonder what happens if I draw a drawing here, hit the B key. Yeah, it still puts it at the end, but that's okay. So now here's the question, people. How do we get these kind of around into the correct order? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to add a couple duplicates here. I don't think there's any dragging and dropping, so I'm going to see, can I go Control X, Control V? I can, but it always puts it at the end, so that's kind of interesting. Puts it at the end. What I meant was it inserts it prior to the drawing that's selected. So actually, probably what I want to do is take this and stick it here. Okay, so does this change what's over here? It does. So this is broken. That's okay though. I'd rather have the drawings kind of sorted in the right order. So this is a mess, no question about it. Why don't we give ourselves some, cut ourselves a break, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to trace over this once so that I have a clean, like an alpha clean version of Mel that I can then refer to. So and also make copies of. So I'm going to hit the B key and let's just kind of get him sketched in there. I don't think this arm's going to be moving much. So we'll keep it simple. Keep it simple. I think maybe these fingers could have been slightly longer. It's kind of mushing down like that. Got that. Okay, and then this, we need to pull this back just a skosh so that he's really putting his weight on that elbow right there. Okay. Kind of feeling like really this should be like the closed knuckle situation. So I'm going to go ahead and close his hand. I'm not going to fiddle too much with the delineating the fingers at this point. But what I think I want to do here is probably, I'm just going to go like this and then turn this off. Get that, actually delete that out of there. Okay. Now we're going to scribble. Now we're going to scribble. Just really trying to draw through the character and see it in my head. I'm thinking maybe we'll go ahead and do these sort of, what do you call them? They're sort of the suspicious eyes kind of thing. I think we could start out with that in this scene. So, alright, and one thing I've been noticing as a technique that you guys might benefit from is that if I got to do something symmetrical, I mean, obviously with some tools you can use symmetry tools, but if it's on a 3/4 angle, you can't. So what I've been finding is if I go ahead and, as I say, draw through the character and kind of sketch in the overall shape that guides it all. Like if I was putting in the bottoms of his eyes, for example, I might go like this. I might actually make a complete shape like this that kind of is a guide. I've been finding that that's helped me make symmetrical drawings and also drawings that are more on character than before. So use that to your advantage if you care to try. Okay, so this is actually looking pretty good. He's kind of got those, as I say, those sort of suspicious eyes going on. And then, so we'll give him literally a half a second. And let's see what happens if we pop that on the screen for half a second and then go to this. Let's just see how it's feeling. I may need some more tweens in there, but I tend to think not. Okay, way too fast. Boom. I don't like that at all. That's got to be a second long. Kind of hard to believe. I didn't think it would want to be that long. Boom. Okay, and this is why I'm having trouble, is I didn't extend this back down. Well, let's kill that. Boom, boom. K key to rewind. Boom. 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 And not too bad, actually. Let's go 32, because at 8 frames a second, that's a good round number for 4 seconds. Boom. Boom. Okay. So, if build off of that initial drawing, as I think Soda Pop's talking about practicing going straight ahead, I find straight ahead animation is much easier than somewhat non-intuitively, actually. for me, pose to pose, I don't think I do it as well. And that may be just because I suck at it, you know, and I need to practice it more or whatever. But the best shots I've had in the show that involve a lot of animation, I've actually done straight ahead. My instinct for just going forward seems to be pretty good. So when I have a drawing like this, and now I have to work backwards because that's where we wind up, it's a little harder for me. Who knows? Maybe I would do better if I didn't even try. If I just said, well, look, I kind of know where I'm going, but just start at the beginning and then redraw it. And what I'm doing here is I'm going to let his cheeks kind of billow out. And the other thing here, by the way, is I'm going to actually see if I can solve this by doing some fill operations with color 0. So if I hit the fill tool, yeah, that helps. That helps a lot, actually. Let's get rid of all this white. So the good thing about color 0 that's on every palette is that it's actually transparency. So you can, that's probably going to help this to be a lot easier. I tend to like, at 8 frames a second, what I tend to like to do is a very small tween and then a large tween. Okay, so this drawing, again, this is, oops, this is where we're getting into, I'm saving my work, by the way. Well, and that's the thing, Soda Pop's, I think for most people, I think it certainly seems like pose to pose should be easier. I struggle with staying on character. It's a very, very interesting thing. Let's see here. I'm hitting the B key. And okay, this actually might be revealing. I may have just stumbled onto revealing why we get some of these alpha issues happening in Tahoma and OpenToonz. Because look at what's happening. When I draw really lightly, not hard enough to make a mark, it's actually, what it's doing is it's first compositing in the alpha, and then it's compositing the marker or the pencil over top of the alpha. So it's saying, okay, apparently I need to make this, if Darren T is paying attention tomorrow, if he watches this, this might be the answer. This might be the compositing problem that leads to alpha issues with raster levels. Because what's happening in a nutshell is this. The software, and I'm literally stumbling upon this right now in real time. I've never come across this before. What's clearly happening is that Tahoma is compositing in an opaque alpha value with no regard to pressure. Pretty much no regard to pressure. No regard to pressure as it pertains to the width of the line, but I'm sorry, it is sensitive to pressure. That's not being reflected in the alpha, and then as a result, it introduces artifacts, which you can see when you render. So that's interesting. Chris K says, what am I using back in? That is definitely not what you intended. Not what you intended. Yeah, look at that. Well, I mean, there you go. We've uncovered the bug that causes the edge issue. These eyes should be googly eyes. Oh, this is terrible. Wow. I'm kind of glad I stumbled on it though, because I mean, I don't know if the devs have really been like tuned into this issue or what causes it, but I can tell what's happening. When it's putting down the mark from the marker, it's doing it in 2 steps. It's basically saying this is all transparent. So first let's lay down a layer of the alpha. Let's crank up the alpha. And then let's assign the RGB color value. The problem is, if these pixels were alpha 0, but there was actually, because what the color is 4 numbers: red, green, blue, and alpha. Alpha being transparency, right? Hey, good night, Maria. Have fun with your meeting. So what's happening is, where I erased the RGB values, or I'm sorry, wherever I erased, the alpha got reduced to 0. Under the hood, Tahoma is not turning the RGB values to anything in particular. So what's happening is, when I draw now, it's first restoring the alpha, which reveals the white color that was already there. That's an interesting conundrum, programmatically, you know, that you would have to solve. Definitely an interesting conundrum. But I mean, it's pretty obvious that's what's going on there. That's crazy. It'd be better to start with a whole new level, I suppose, but we'll just live with it for now, because again, it is just a pencil test. But look at how it's just, if I draw really lightly, it brings all the white back. Yeah, that's pretty wrong. Well, the solution is that when you draw, at least with a My paintbrush, what should be happening, you can lay down the alpha level in a first step and then lay down the RGB value in a second step. There's nothing wrong with that. But what should be happening is the alpha value is actually just being set to 255. It's being set to the highest value to just make it opaque again. And this alpha value should actually be a gradient based on the pressure, so that the only thing we see, this is wherever there's color should be the only area where the alpha sneaks through. Now I might be able to, there might be an adjustment here with the pre-multiply thing that would help. Let me try this. Ah, that did it. Okay. So when you're dinking around with art that's been brought in from somewhere else, you probably want to turn on pre-multiply. Okay. So if you don't pre-multiply, you're dealing essentially with a flat on or off alpha value, basically, at the edges. So now let's see if that makes the drawing a little nicer. And it does. Okay, cool. So kind of my bad, but I don't know. It kind of still feels like a bit of a bug, especially because when I just erased that right there, you saw a bunch of noise. Like you can see a dark area here. I didn't do that. When I erased, it introduced it. Very strange. Right there, I just got another one. Right there's another one. So yeah, interesting stuff. I mean, it's interesting stuff if you're into that sort of thing. So we'll have an eye blink, but I'm not gonna draw it. Okay, that was too quick. So you lagged and I didn't. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't need to. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to add one other little transition here. Here, I'm just slowly building up the animation here. I'm just basically looking for what feels right. And I'm allowing this to go in a very cartoony direction, partly because some of this stuff is going to be moving across the screen real fast. Like this is going to be on the screen for 1 frame. And partly because I want to allow a little bit of levity to slip through in this particular scene. Okay. Now, because of that little bit of levity, I think it needs to last longer. Okay, let me just hold on. I'm going to scrub this. Okay. Okay. I'm going to redraw this, but I think I've got the right idea, though. Back up just a bit. Let me make a few adjustments. I want to pull that up we're gonna just I'm just gonna use the selection tool to just kind of fudge some quick and dirty adjustments and see if the movement feels about right. And I think I would like to add a little bit of an arc there. That didn't work. Mainly because of this, so I'm going to actually erase that. Yeah, it's a little too low. Something more like that, probably. I want to feel like his weight shifts up a little bit. Up a little bit. Okay, cool. Okay. Alright, what is the actual expression I'm trying to find here? It's gonna be, it's ouch. I know I'm making faces. That's what we do when we're trying to draw an expression. We make faces. Now, I may be going too I may be going too far in terms of the, because that reaction's actually pretty good. Oh. So that mouth is not working. Now there are plenty of circumstances where it would, actually. I'm just feeling like, oh come on, that's not what I meant to do. I'm feeling like right now it's kind of one little expression too many. It's like I'm trying to do too much in this shot. So I like your comment, Soda Pop, about how many frames it takes to do things. I think one of the things you always run into with pose to pose is that, I don't know, your mileage may vary, but do you find that you'll almost always on your first run have the changes happening way too fast? Like it seems like it never fails that my initial run tends to make, you know, you just don't even have time to you know, you're looking at the screen, you don't even have time to digest it before it's gone, you know. I think with pose to pose, invariably you wind up having to stretch things back out again. With straight ahead, I do not have that problem. It's actually freaked me out how, and I maybe I'm talented at that, I don't know. But when I just go straight ahead, I tend to just feel when to do things, and it tends to come out pretty close. So that's another thing about straight ahead, that if it looks somewhat like I'm trying to come up with some sort of character animation tour de force here, if I am not just the animator but also the big boss, which I am, I'd be tapping Mr. Animator on the shoulder and saying, you know, you actually could just kind of pick one. Either have the ooh or have the ooh. But if you do both, you're probably overdoing it. Okay, I'm going to keep running with this, though. Let's just keep running with it because it's fun to draw. Okay, so first of all, everything that comes later is happening, again, like I said, way too quick. Well, it figures. I'm doing pose-to-pose animation. So what it should be is, ooh, bop. Right there, there should be a response of some kind, okay? What I'm going to do, gosh, again, this would be so much easier in Krita. But I'm going to make a duplicate of this. I'm just going to keep flowing with it because I'm having fun. S key to select this. I'm just going to play around with this. What feels right? And I may make horrible, horrible, filthy mistakes. But that's okay. We're here to have fun. And it never hurts to try. So I'm just thinking about, ooh. Okay, I want to draw this fast because I can see it in my head. I'm feeling it. That's good. I'm liking that. That's actually, again, and what am I doing? I'm animating straight ahead. I've given up on post to post. I start animating straight ahead and I start feeling it. It's really weird. I mean, I don't want to disparage the value of post to post animation. You know, obviously Richard Williams points you toward a hybrid approach, and I think he's probably right. You know, most of the time that probably is the right approach. Because you okay. So what I'll do here is I'll just hit Control X and nothing will happen. Okay. Control X. There we go. And why did it not? Okay. Okay, I guess it did work. I'm gonna do a computer share. I actually like the progression, partly because it's not happening too fast now. It's actually, okay, but it all ends way too soon because this needs to be extended down yonder. You know, I don't know. You just figure out what works. But I'm liking the way this is shaping up. Ooh. Okay, that is way too fast as well. Doggone it, man. It's like these. There's kind of these delicious little expressions. You know, you want to at least give the audience maybe the chance to actually experience it, right? Okay, this is wrong though. This ooh, like ooh, ouch kind of thing, definitely is not the right expression. So let's just try something totally different. I'm seeing this needs to be more like a genuine surprise, and if it was, then I think that the progression into the, you know, would actually make sense. So. Gotta get the olives, baby. I'll put my microphone up here like this for a minute, so you guys don't have to. So you guys don't have to hear me chew my olives. That wouldn't be. Okay, sorry about that. I think this. It's a nice little drawing, but I think it's out of place. Control X. Boom. What fouled me up earlier is when you ripple edit like that. You see that? What just happened? Takes Tahoma a second to like redraw the screen. I have olive issues. Okay. N key. Now I like that. This little. Okay, except. Okay, that's right. That seems to combine. And I like the way he's looking straight out at the audience, almost like breaking the third wall. That seems to combine the. It's like a Popeye thing, like ooh, ooh. I don't know if a person ever actually does that. I guess I haven't, but. So then, arguably, it's going to turn out that this right here should be on the screen for a shorter period of time, but I don't know yet. So let's just kind of zoom out and see it play. Okay. One more time. Boom, boom, bop, right there. Okay, so this should probably be deleted, so Control X. All right, back to the beginning. Okay, one more time. Boom, bop, ba-dop. Okay, so this is too short, and this is too long. Bop, bop, ba-dop. Getting into the zone here, folks. Okay, what if this was only 1 frame long? I don't think I'm going to like it, but it's worth a look. Boom, bop, boom. Okay, actually, I do like it. I like that, and then extend this a little bit. Boom, bum, ba-dum. And here, somewhere in the middle, we need to put an eye blink, but we don't have to put that here in the pencil test. And I think that's it. I think that's our shot. Bop, ba-dum. Yep, if we put the eye blink in there, we'll have a nice well-rounded little expression. It'll be nice. So we'll take this, delete it out of there. This gradient. I think we're going to be pretty safe on a 42 frame shot. And okay, so anybody got any questions out there or anything like that? Speak up. Now's the time. Let me know. Because overall pressure, I think we're in good shape. Zoom in. And draw. I'm actually going to take that back down all the way. I think the smoothing's just a little bit hot. You could say a little bit aggressive. Didn't like that. That's pretty good. Boom, 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 boom. So I'm on season 5 of Fairy Tale. I'm really kind of surprised at myself that I, a grown adult, have chewed through some 150 some episodes, I believe it is, of Fairy Tale. There's a lot about that show that I really like. There's a little bit about it that's a little juvenile and or annoying. Mainly that they don't actually cover very much in any given episode. They tend to do a really good job of dragging it out, like episode after episode. Yes, they do. But that's the price you pay for enjoying Fairy Tale. You have to sit through that. But from the standpoint of the writing, the character mix, I mean, the writing is a little bit wily in the way that they do drag out, like the current arc. It's got to be taking at least 3 or 4 episodes longer. I mean, too much filler. Yeah. I think I'm feeling you on that one. There's a reasonable amount of filler. You know, I mean, I guess I get it. They know where their bread is buttered, and you know, keeping it going for a long time is pretty much the game. But the current arc has a good number of episodes that kind of feel to me like they're really kind of wasting time. Like, we've just had a couple episodes in a row here where it's like nothing really happened except, well, the reason is what they've done is they've taken the group. Okay, it's a large group. If you've never watched the show, there's a large cast of characters. There's 2 or 3 that are kind of the main ones for the most part, but or maybe half a dozen that are kind of the key characters that everything revolves around. But it's a large cast, and So what they need to do in the current arc is, because the group's been broken up into pieces and set off in half a dozen different directions, they really need to devote entire episodes to just one of the groups and develop, you know, the plot and character aspects of their journey, rather than trying to give a little nugget. Because what happens is you get this whole episode where all you're doing is jumping to each of 6 or 8 groups of people who are all going, oh, I realize the problem that we have and how big of a problem it's going to be. And then it goes to the next group and they do the same thing. You know, it kind of gets old. It would be better to say, have that realization, and now let's go ahead and let the story develop a bit for that group. You know, with the caveat that, of course, that implies that you've got a little bit of jumping around in time that happens. But, man, in an anime, nobody's paying attention to that. Nobody cares. In fact, oftentimes, one of the key devices that the writers use to drag the arc out is to use flashbacks, where you wind up chewing up a third of an episode. Wait, you put Inuyashiki. Seems like I've watched Inuyasha. Isn't that right? Inuyasha? Inuyashiki. Let me see what that is. I might like it. You know, some stuff is or isn't my cup of tea. Like for example, like a good example of a popular one. That I don't like at all, that I have absolutely no use for, is Attack on Titan. Can't stand it. I've tried. There's nothing about it that I consider particularly interesting or well done. I hate to say that because that's going to be a really unpopular opinion. Somebody out there who loves Attack on Titan, which my son does. My son thinks it's great. I find it a bit gratuitous. Now, I kind of had the same problem to a degree with Death Note. Now, recently we watched it again. And I have to say, once again, once they got rid of L, it ended for me. It was like, okay, this is stupid. Why are you going to introduce this new character called Nier, who's essentially a clone of the guy you just killed off? It's just stupid. Up until they killed off L, pretty good. You know, it held your attention. But I always found Death Note interesting from the standpoint that before they did Death Note, the team that did Death Note as a manga, I should say a manga, did Bakuman, and Bakuman is about two teenage boys in school who want to create manga. They want to be manga artists and writers, and the whole show is just about it's a 5-year or 5-season arc as they gradually progress in their professional career as creators of manga. And as a slice of life concept, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was the first manga I ever actually looked at, and the reason was I thought, I checked this manga thing out, right? And I was in the library and it was there. It's like they had the whole series, the first at least dozen episodes at the library. So I'm like, okay, I'll check it out. So I'm checking out Inuyashiki. Science fiction. Okay, there are very few. Just so you know, there are very, very few sci-fi manga, or I'm sorry, anime that I have found myself liking. I don't even know if there's any. I don't know why. Might be because they always seem to use the same sort of storytelling devices. They seem to be usually very dark and dystopian right out of the gate, and that's just kind of like supposed to be kind of cool, and edgy, right? And I just didn't. It never worked for me, but I'd check it out here. I think what I'll do is, out of respect for Soda Pop, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually jump on YouTube and see if I can find some clip of it. I'd like to see what it looks like. Inuyashiki, there it is. Okay. Looks like we've got a subtitled full episode 1, so that's kind of interesting. So I'm going to skip through, as I did the other day on another anime that someone suggested, and I will say, number 1, I immediately don't like it. Sorry, Soda Pop. I immediately don't like it because I have never seen so far an anime that uses 3D for 2D that does it well, that I thought was more appealing to watch than actual 2D. And right out of the gate here, I'm seeing all kinds of 2D rendered 3D. It's not all. Some of it's hand-drawn, obviously, but there's a lot. And it looks like the same old stupid, at the risk of sounding like a jerk here, the same old doofy toon rendering stuff that we've all seen a million times, like that. Like, that's horrible. Like, there's nothing about that looks good to me. That's just my opinion. Other people may disagree. And the story might be great. Might be a great story. Might be great characters. Who knows? But the effects look pretty good, obviously. The use of 3D is pretty liberal. I mean, there's obviously a lot of 3D there. You're seeing a lot of the glow and the gradient bloom type of thing we've talked about the last few sessions. It seems like every frame of the show has a gradient over it, so that the color at the top of the screen is different from the bottom of the screen. It's a really cheap, simple way to add a little bit of production value at almost no cost. This looks all, pretty normal. Looks fine. I'm waiting for let me go back here and. Okay, so the characters look like pretty much standard dystopian sci-fi anime fare. I am seeing a lot of bloom. Boy, are they going crazy on the bloom. Every single frame of this thing, I think, has a bloom effect on it. It's very subtle, but I can see it. It gives a certain kind of softness and a glow. Yeah, I've been using that myself, so can't poo-poo that. Yeah, I mean, this looks fine. This looks good. Ooh, well, okay, so now this is funny. It bears mentioning that my dog is a Shiba Inu. Okay, so that dog right there is Krita. That's my dog, actually, if you can believe that. Pretty much looks like her. They are a Japanese breed, and they are the primordial dog. In other words, dogs have a sliding genome, which is why there's so many varieties that can interbreed. And if you were to trace dogs back in time to the primordial dog, like what was the first dog before it started splitting off into all kinds of different breeds, the Shiba would be towards the beginning of the line. Not necessarily the beginning of the line, but they'd be back there. Which is why they go feral really easily. If you have a Shiba and they escape, you know, get out of the house, which happened once while I was live streaming, and if you guys watch me a lot, you'd know that I had to stop the stream. They turn into a wild animal, basically. They just go feral, and it becomes really hard to catch them because they're afraid of everything and they want to run away. But yeah, that's a Shiba. Cool. No, it looks like the emotional component of the storytelling is probably pretty good. I'm just skipping through, obviously, but it does look interesting. I don't love the character designs. They're not the character designs aren't grabbing me too much. It's just not my cup of tea. It's a little more realistic style than, you know, you're gonna see on some of the shows I've been watching lately. But yeah, I mean, it's good stuff. Looks like it's quite well done. Yada yada yada. And back to work we go. So thanks for the tip, man. All right, where are we at? Both inherited death and rebirth from a strange alien landing, and both find out later they are cyborgs with super scientific abilities. Okay, yeah, I mean, that's a cool angle. I like it. That's a cool twist. Actually, it's kind of funny because Valerie was working on she was working on a book concept, and then she kind of shifted gears to a different book concept that's more of a well, a dystopian, almost getting into the zombie, you know, end of the spectrum, which again, it's definitely not my cup of tea. But because her background is in virology, and obviously the whole world is dealing with a global pandemic based on a virus, she knows a lot about that, and so she has a little different take on how a pandemic might actually quite realistically could, if you really think through the science of it, how a virus could affect your brain and result in behavioral changes and things like that that look a lot like what we associate with zombie behavior in zombie shows, you know, like Walking Dead. You become real violent, you become psychotic perhaps, you might be seeing things. There's a lot of things that could go wrong that could come from a parasite. Look at The Walking Dead. I mean, everything in that space was influenced by The Walking Dead because it was so super successful. So then everybody sort of jumped on that bandwagon, right? So that's totally understandable. I never particularly liked The Walking Dead, but I appreciate it from the. I think it was done well. It was cast well. But you know, something like that, if I see 2-3 episodes, I'm like, okay, there's things I can appreciate about it, but it's not particularly fun to sit and watch, you know, to me. So everybody's got their preferences. All right, so let's zip out here. Looks like we're in good shape. So this is supposed to hold to there, and then what do we got? Oh yes, okay. Can we duplicate that? Let's duplicate it, and then just start erase everything that's going to move. Will erase. I'm not going to try to use the selection tool, with one tiny exception being his arm. Everything else I'm going to redraw. I'm going to go ahead and but you know, I mean, I can have an intelligent, critical conversation about almost any show or property or movie or anything, and there's always something to enjoy and appreciate in any property. And so I guess for me, I make a distinction between being able to appreciate the pros and cons of anything versus would I just sit there and, for my own entertainment, would I watch it? The truth is, I don't watch much. I actually don't watch much television or movies anymore. I've kind of seen... I've seen a lot of what I really need to see, and I'm more interested in creating this stuff at this point. And that's true with a lot of people that do high volumes of creative work, is they don't like piss away a lot of time just, you know, watching it anymore, right? Not that there's anything wrong with that. You know? It's all good. Boink. One is a man reading teenager and the other is an old man. Yeah, the old man definitely jumped out in that thing. And even Trump has a cameo, huh? It means last hero in Japanese. Okay, yeah, so again, definitely very dystopian. It's all good. Let me see here what we're doing with his arm. No, actually, when it comes to I guess you'd say entertainment, I usually find myself, if I'm just gonna kill a little time, I'm gonna be watching YouTube, actually. And a lot of stuff. Some of it's news, some of it's political, some of it's educational, you know, some of it's esoteric. Right now I'm spending a fair amount of time studying technical trading, you know. So, in particular, I'm looking at the pros and cons of the Heiken Asi, which also, weirdly enough, since I'm doing an anime here, is Japanese. It was actually invented in the 1700s. But it's a way of analyzing commodities trading and looking at the data that purports to a degree to do a better job. The biggie being that it's always going to be a little bit behind the market in terms of the ways that it informs you to act as a if you mitigate that based on your trading time frame, you know, that can be just a simple cost you incur that doesn't necessarily make you unprofitable. But I find that to be quite interesting, the whole idea of technical trading. And the stupid OBS is once again blanking out. OBS is really good at blanking out, like, constantly. Blame it on your internet connection. No. Not one other application, absolutely zero other applications, of which there are many, have any issues at all. Blame it on YouTube. No. Lots of people stream on YouTube flawlessly. Blame it on OBS. Ah, there we go. The problem with current show plots in the USA is almost all either reality show or anti-hero based fiction. Yeah, I agree with you that the entertainment landscape in the United States has become a bit one-dimensional. Now, I can't speak about that very intelligently from the standpoint of television. I mean, basically, here's the deal. My heroes in terms of television writers, guys like Stephen J. Cannell, probably would not be successful today. Because the stuff that they wrote that was considered good in the 1970s and 80s is very slow moving today. If you go back and watch the pilot of the Rockford Files, which was an enormously successful show, oh my goodness, it's really hard to sit through. It moves so slow. It's really crazy. But so my opinion is television came into its own finally, basically in the 90s. Not so much from the standpoint of comedy, because there's been hits and misses all along the way, right? But as far as drama goes, and just quality of writing and quality of production, I think in the 90s it sort of finally got to a really high level, actually. And the advent of more and more cable channels probably helped that. You know, it really pushed the quality up. And more competition. Competition from reality television, actually, specifically. So I think that was good for television. In the movie space, though, I mean, come on. You know, what major movie comes out that isn't a superhero thing anymore? You know? So it's understandable. I mean, if that's what sells tickets and that's what gets people to watch the darn thing, then, you know, of course you're going to try to maximize what's working. You know, build on what's working. That's what I was saying about The Walking Dead. The reason there's so many dystopian zombie books and or shows that are kind of have the same, you know, endless alpha males bitching at each other. You know, it's just the same thing on and on and on, is because one team did it and happened to hit a home run, and so everybody else is following their lead. It's understandable. That's why I thought Z Nation was a much better show than Walking Dead by a landslide. Walking Dead is, if you've seen one episode, you've seen them all, literally. You know, on the other hand, at least Z Nation, they try to inject some humor into the situation and make it fun to a degree. You know. Everything felt really progressive in the early 90s. Well, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'm not sure if you're saying that as a good thing or a bad thing. But I agree. You know what? It's been done well. I mean, look at what Joss Whedon has done. Now, Joss Whedon probably, I don't know, but it's I haven't been following him in recent years. I guess it's probably pretty likely that he's either started to repeat himself or run out of gas. Because remember, this is a really significant thing. When it was pointed out to me, I think it was Malcolm Gladwell's book. What was Gladwell's book? It wasn't Blank. Outliers. I think it was Outliers. But anyway, it really got me thinking about the whole thing of people's creative output that's like and this is getting off the path of what you were talking about, Soda Pop, but I'll just kind of yeah, the anti-hero thing for sure. I mean, look at the okay, what's it called? The Walter White thing, you know, making crystal meth. You know, very well done show, but you know, pretty dark. I don't know why the name of that show is escaping me at the moment. Breaking Bad. Okay, so the problem for me with Breaking Bad is purely from the standpoint of me as a writer dealing with characters that I want to like. Even if it's a villain, I want to be able to like them and get on board for some reason. Okay? So for me, this is my criticism of Breaking Bad. I think it was the second season, it was all about the angst of Walter and Skyler. It was all about being in the same room with two people who can't have an honest conversation, and there's so much tension in the air you can cut it with a knife, and it never ends. It's like a really, really negative place to be. And it just went on and on and on. It's like, why am I going to sit and watch this crap? You know, I can go have a crappy relationship of my own if I want to sit and languish in the world of crappy relationships, where the one person could solve the whole thing in an instant. The whole thing could be solved right now. Game over. No problem here. What is the solution? Just tell the truth. It's all Walter ever had to do. So for me, it was so stupid the way they're dragging this thing. Of course he can't tell the truth, because if he tells the truth, they won't have a show anymore. You know. So for me, it was like, okay, that's just chimpy. The initial concept was great. It was clever. I shouldn't say it was great. It was clever. It was an interesting concept. It was well written. The mix of Walter with the young kid, I forget his name, was well handled. The endless conflict there was, you know, pretty delicious from a writing standpoint. And it was good stuff. Let's see, Control or Shift Alt R. Boom. But holy cow, season 2 it just completely ended for me. I couldn't watch it anymore. It was boring and negative. But that's just my opinion. You know, there were still a lot of things to like about it. I mean, there's a lot of things about that show that were well done. So, okay, yeah, Dexter's a good example. Okay, so Dexter, my son likes Dexter. I've watched about probably a season's worth of Dexter. This is just purely my personal proclivity, okay? I just don't enjoy being made to like and empathize with a guy that's a cold-blooded murderer. Now, admittedly, he's got a lot of angst in his life because of his background that one needs to sympathize with, to say, okay, it made him the person he is today. You can feel sorry for Dexter. I get that. And I think you should, actually. Those are things that are worth considering. But do I want to sit here and watch it week after week that the guy, you know, like, the reason it bugs me is because when I see my son watching it, to a point, there's something cool about that. And I'm thinking, no, I don't want that to be cool. I don't want, like, cold-blooded tying people up and taping them down and slicing their limbs off to be considered cool. So when you conflate a character like Dexter, which Michael Hall, whatever his name is, did a great job. I mean, really good job. And obviously he's a super creative, super talented guy. I can totally appreciate that. In fact, the girl that played his sister, Dab, I believe, she was excellent. My second movie that I did for Parables, I would have loved to have had her play the lead in that movie. I never tried to go down that road. I don't even know if I was aware of Dexter at the time that I actually made the film, but just she had such an edge. And the funny thing is about the character, the actress that played Deb, not that long ago, she reappeared on a sitcom. And it really underscored for me the power of casting, because she did not work at all on that sitcom. I don't remember what it was. It was something on Netflix, I think. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if I had never seen her on Dexter, I would think she is a really awful actress. I mean, it just did not work at all. So I wouldn't blame it on her acting. I just blame it on the scripts and the casting. It really underscores how important that is. You can, I've said that before here, but you can absolutely destroy a movie or a show with the wrong casting. Definitely. Badunk. So, okay, I'm going to read some of Soda Pop's. I mean, I appreciate your engaging here with me, Soda Pop. It's pretty cool. The problem with show plots is they're all either reality show or anti-hero, right? Yeah, the whole reality show thing is totally understandable because it was cheap. And cheap when you need more and more and more and more and more content with more and more channels, something cheap was bound to carry the day, and reality television did. Not really dystopian, right? Not that show, but the anti-hero thing has been huge ever since The Sopranos. Yeah, and a lot of people absolutely love The Sopranos. None of these kinds of shows existed in the USA prior to The Sopranos. Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, I'd have to think about it to see if I can come up with an exception, you know, so I can argue with you. But I think you're probably right. I mean, The Sopranos being on, I believe it was on HBO, right? So it's not on standard network television. Grew up watching Letterman with Chris Elliott and Balky from Perfect Strangers. A lot of the people in the shows were like good role models. Yeah. Yeah, and if I recall correctly, Soda Pop, I think you and I are in a similar age bracket. So I can definitely relate to what you're talking about. You know, Letterman's a good guy. Letterman's a decent, balanced human being, you know. I like Letterman. I never used to actually watch him that much. Now, I watched his daytime show. Before he ever had the nighttime show, So this would have been in the, gosh, late 70s, early 80s. Oh, what was the actress? Everyone knows her now, and I can't remember her name. But before anybody knew who she was on Letterman's daytime show. And she would talk like this, and she would say, "I'm Mrs. Marv Mendenhall." That was Mrs. Marv, and she sort of had this, like, I don't know, Wisconsin accent, or kind of like the stuff you hear in a movie like Fargo. I can't recall what her name is, but she went on to have some more significant roles. But yeah, she had this sort of recurring appearance on Letterman's daytime television show, which I think that only lasted one season. Pretty sure. So yeah, I only knew about it because I watched it during the summer one year when I was home from school, you know. I think it was on at like 10 in the morning, and I believe it was called The David Letterman Show. Why it only lasted one season, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it was only one season. Did not have a very good shelf life. And then I think, and it might have been because of the nighttime show, because I believe that when the daytime show ended, I think the late night started like the next year. So that might have had something to do with shifting gears there. That's what I'm thinking. MTV The Real World was the first reality show, and it stunk. Nobody ever thought they would continue moving the love of Kardashians and all that. Yeah, the Kardashians. It's funny. I always like to mention the long weekend I spent with Caitlyn Jenner, and all she did. Well, okay, she wasn't Caitlyn then; she was Bruce, and all he did was talk about his daughters and all the money they spent and all this kind of stuff. But apparently, Caitlyn is gearing up to run for governor. So there's a reality show scenario if ever I saw one. But yeah, I don't know if I would agree that the first reality show, The Real World, maybe. I mean, certainly it came about in the same climate as, you know, American Idol, which isn't a reality show. It's really a variation on a game show concept, whoops. So yeah, it could be that Real World was the first reality show, but it was definitely cheap to produce and let them crank out a lot of content very, very quickly. So you can't blame them for going in that direction. And if people watch it, they watch it, you know. If it draws an audience, you got to respect that too. I've never, ever given, you know, hardly any of my time at all to reality shows of any kind. I have no use for it. Now, there was one situation, I'm probably the best long-distance shooter on the planet. He can hit a little target like that at like 3 miles. 3 miles. I mean, it puts, you know, American Sniper to shame, what they're able to do today with a combination of technology and just pure skill. So anyway, but there was some discussion at one point about us teaming up to do a reality show. And at that time, my advice to my friend, who I won't name, was that I didn't really think a reality show... He had someone pitching him on doing a reality show. And I'm like, you know what? If they're going to incur all the cost, send the camera crews out there, do the whole thing, you know, it's worth a look. Yeah, I miss Saturday morning cartoons too. Although the thing that's sad about it is when I go back and look at them again, they weren't that good. They were hard to watch, actually. You know, other than the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner hour. But So anyway, but it really wasn't someone offering to produce a reality show. It was more like, you know, we'll kind of partner together kind of thing. It was basically like it was going to cost him to produce this thing that I'm going, you know, the problem is, Paul. Well, yeah, okay, so now I'm giving away his name's Paul. Anyway, but the problem was, my sense was that the audience for a reality show probably wasn't there. Now, I was like, you know, if you went to Discovery Networks and you pitched them on something probably for the military channel that really gets into in an entertaining way, you've got your long distance shooting with but then you get into a lot of like motion graphics and stuff that really show you the technology of how the ballistics work and you know, the arc of flight and how the, you know, the wind affects it and all, you know, humidity, all those things. I'm like, you know, that would, to me, I don't really feel like it's a show. I feel like it's probably like a one-off, like a documentary kind of thing. I don't feel like it's a series, but maybe. You know, it's kind of like, you know, it maybe could work as a series. If the educational aspect of it maybe related in some ways to history in some way. The history of ballistics and accuracy and gun construction, all those sorts of things. I think, you know, there might be something there. That might be an interesting show. And you know, there was this other team from our hometown who was pitching him fairly strongly on whatever it is they wanted to do. And at the end of the day, I don't know. As I recall, I felt like after we talked, it was like, this probably isn't going to work out that well. And indeed, it didn't. I kind of predicted what was going to happen, and it kind of went the way I predicted. Which I won't get into all the details of that, but that's the problem with reality television. You know, somebody's got to... And by the way, here's the thing about reality television versus scripted television. I can say this from total experience in no uncertain terms, because I've edited footage and shows and presentations that involved live coverage of live events and a lot of impromptu shooting of all kinds of crap that you sort of try to cobble together into some sort of narrative or entertaining presentation. And what I learned was this. The economies of reality television, for me, are a false economy. Because, now it might be because I'm a fast writer, but I can write a episode of this cartoon in a week. If I had to, I could write it in 2 days, right? If I really had to. You know, 24 pages. I know that all day long I'm going to write 5 pages an hour. So for me to crank out 15 pages a day has never been a problem. Well, when you start looking at the economies of that, and now compare that to what I have done in the editing bay, which is take hours and hours and hours and hours of footage that you have to wade through to try to figure out, like I said, how to cobble it into some sort of narrative that's entertaining. I mean, on a show like Keeping Up with the Kardashians, that's literally what they do. I mean, they come into the place, they're saying, okay, Bruce, hey, Kim, whatever, here's the scenario. Now you guys run with it. All the cameras are running. They get hours and hours of footage, and then they have to try to make it into something that's entertaining. Well, my experience is going through a bunch of crap footage to find the stuff that's useful is really time consuming and not fun. Nothing fun about that at all. I mean, and that's, in fact, that's what I told Paul when we were talking about this concept. I'm like, geez, Paul, I tell you, if I'm going to have anything to do with it, I want it to be actually somewhat scripted, so that at least we're going to shoot stuff and we know that what we shot we're going to mostly use. Because when you get where you're wading through hours of footage, all your economies just went out the window as far as I'm concerned. Unless you got some editor that you're paying horribly. And, you know, it's like tough cookies, baby. You're going to have to figure out how to make it work, however long it takes. I'd be like, I don't want that job. I'd rather not do it, thank you very much. Not my idea of a good time at all. So yeah, the whole reality TV thing I've never had any desire to be involved with that. Closest I got to it was directing, that's when I worked with Bruce Jenner, was directing like 3-camera coverage of some of the largest dog sporting events in the world. The biggest dog sporting event in the world we covered for, I think, 3 years in a row. And, you know, it was fun. It was cool. We'd fly out to Arizona for a long weekend and near Phoenix. Well, Scottsdale to be specific. And, yeah, just kind of run our cameras in 90-degree weather. But for me, we always had a plan. You know, we had a plan so that we could then chop it into a 3-camera edit that was fairly crisp without too much effort, without too much wasted time, I should say. It took a lot of effort, actually. That first year, back in those days, DVDs were still a thing, and I was up till 3 in the morning with multiple instances of Vegas rendering to try to get all the programming chopped together and ready to sell, you know. X-Men, okay, so X-Men and Batman had great shows. Well, yeah, you're getting into the filmation stuff. You know, there's some good documentaries here on YouTube about filmation. And that's not Funimation, that's Filmation. Really quite good documentaries here on YouTube about the Filmation company, which basically they were the biggest competitor to Hanna-Barbera. Tailspin and DuckTales, obviously now you're getting into, I suppose, Disney and perhaps Warner Brothers as well. Bought that show back and it has no heart, now it just feels plastic. Yeah, that might be. I don't know. I think my sense with cartoons is that they have become gratuitously frenetic in many cases. If you go back to like Invader Zim, you know, in the early, you know, basically back to the 90s, there was a resurgence in the 90s because of Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. And so then the early shows that tapped into that would be things like what was it? I'm drawing a blank on it. It's My something. I can't remember what it is. I'm sorry, wrong. Rocko's Modern Life. Rocko's Modern Life was one of the first shows that sort of tapped into that need for content, and it wasn't as frenetic as some of the stuff that came later. And obviously, the Simpsons influenced that. And as you guys know, I love Futurama. I mean, I love that show. I think it's really well done, really well written. But yeah, Rocko's Modern Life, followed by Samurai Jack. And Samurai Jack, I can't watch more than a few episodes of it before I start checking out because it's just so repetitive and stuff. Totally repetitive. So, but it has a cult following, obviously a very loyal cult following. So, okay, I think I just really miss traditional animation. See, what I was going to say, Soda Pop, is this. While the frenetic character of it I don't love, I do think the overall quality, in terms of just how close they get to full animation with children's programming today, is actually really, really impressive. I think that the technical, what's happened, as far as I'm concerned, if you compare it to Schoolhouse Rock, Filmation, Hanna-Barbera, if you compare all of that to what's being done today, I have to say what's being done today is way, way, way better from a technical standpoint. From a writing standpoint, or how inspired it is, or how good the characters are, if you can grab them and really get on board with them and all that, I can't speak to that. I suspect it's probably hit and miss. There's probably a few good ones in there for sure, but from a technical standpoint, animation is in a really good place. And I don't miss. I mean, what I'm doing is what I want to do. Now, I enjoy a little more, you know, I guess if I really wanted to do full animation, I would do it. You know what I mean? I think anime, to a large extent, has hit the sweet spot. I mean, in this show, obviously you've got sequences, especially this bit with the monkey, where I get to have a lot of fun doing a fair amount of, here we've got quite a good bit of straight ahead animation that really came out quite nice. But I guess for me, the point is, for me, that animation, it really works, but it only works for me because it serves the story and the characters, right? I don't love it because it's full animation. I love it because it's entertaining. And whatever it takes to have an entertaining result, I'm okay with, basically. So, I used to love Tailspin and DuckTales. I never watched either one of those, by the way, very much. Just really miss tradition. Small glimpse of it in some animes today, and that's just about it. Real. Yeah, I guess I answered that. Some animes, like I said, I've been enjoying Fairy Tail. There's things about the writing side of it and the pacing of it in terms of from episode to episode that I would criticize. But as far as the drawing style, the level of action, little effects like what I'm doing here with his characterization, just kind of fun stuff. They really do a pretty good job, I have to say. And I think most importantly, although again, I'm not loving the pacing sometimes, from the standpoint of the cast of characters and their value system and how they intermix together, I actually think the writing on that show is pretty good. I mean, it's clearly aimed at a younger audience, and I appreciate that. You got to temper what you're doing a little bit to accommodate that. But and I tend to like, when it comes to anime, I tend to like slice of life the best. So I thought, especially if it's comedy and it's done well. So I enjoyed the first, I don't know, about half dozen episodes of was it Kobayashi? Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. I thought that was kind of fun. But after about a half dozen episodes, it sort of got... Yeah, I mean, I was born in '66, so I'm 54. Might be another guy that was more like 52 or something. Some guy from... I mean, you're from am I wrong? I'm thinking you're from England. You're from Darren's neck of the woods, or am I thinking of somebody else here on the channel? Okay, I need whites of his eyes, by the way. Man, it's after 9 o'clock. I gotta actually wrap this up. I'm gonna have to wrap this up and carry on again tomorrow. I've been live streaming for 2 hours. Holy cow. Well, it's been fun. Yeah, you're a 90s kid. I am a 70s to 80s. I'm 75 to 85 would be, basically the 70s, actually. So I would have been 5 years old in 1971 or something. So I lived through all that. I lived through the whole Filmation and Hanna-Barbera thing. Yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Crazy thing about that is I remember seeing the early episodes or issues of the comic book in a comic book store up in East Lansing, Michigan, in my college days. Should have bought a copy. It'd probably be worth something today, right? Yeah. So, anyway, I think I'm gonna wrap it up though. I actually have to get Zuko's cage covered up. Yeah, we'll see you later. Thanks for hanging out, Soda Pop. It's been fun. Sorry I didn't get the shot done here, but a lot of good progress today. I think about 20 minutes of show, or 20 seconds of show, if I recall. So, I'm satisfied. We'll pick it up again tomorrow. As you guys know, there will be more later.